After a long time, the tree sap would get hard and become fossilized, just like a dinosaur bone, preserving the mosquito inside.
Hello, everyone. This is 17 Stages of Story, and you are watching the hero's journey breakdown for Jurassic Park. I've suspected for years that Jurassic Park was full of subtext, but now I'm convinced. This sci-fi popcorn blockbuster is actually one of the most prescient dystopian stories ever put on film. Like many of the films I've recently covered, Jurassic Park is about something that's gone astray in the realms of order and chaos, and masculine and feminine. As always, I'll be tracking the golden path, choosing just one dominant stage of the hero's journey at any given time. I also like to reference other movies during these breakdowns, so check the description for spoilers. Finally, if you're looking for an introduction, then I suggest you start with What is the Hero's Journey, which is linked in the description below. With all that in mind, let's dive in. Our story opens in Jurassic Park when a raptor kills one of the workers. This is the inciting incident, the first domino that leads to our hero's call to adventure. But when the hero isn't involved, I consider these indirect inciting incidents part of the ordinary world. This takes us into an exposition-heavy setup that smuggles in one key line.
He had to leave early. He wants to be with his daughter. She's getting a divorce.
Well, I understand that, but we've been advised to deal with the situation now.
Jurassic Park is primarily about Alan Grant's fear of starting a family in a world where the natural balance between masculine and feminine has been thrown into turmoil. All this comes out when we meet Grant and Sattler, but before we even see Grant, we see the raptor claw that he carries around for the first half of the movie. This represents his baggage around children, parenthood, and family. It's the thorn in his side, the stick up his... But it's not really children that he hates. We know what he hates because he tells us with his very first line.
I hate computers.
Okay, but why? He hates technology because it represents the artificial reversal of the natural order. He wants to do things the old-fashioned way.
A few more years development and we won't even have to dig anymore. Where's the fun in that?
But he's not one of those heroes who turns out to be right about everything from the start. At this point, he can't tell the difference between healthy change and unhealthy change, so he rejects it all. He wants to cling to the lifeless bones of a world that's dead, gone, and never coming back. On the other hand, his fascination with the theory that dinosaurs evolved into birds provides him with the seed of transformation.
And look at the half-moon-shaped bones on the wrist. It's no wonder these guys learn how to fly.
Often, it's a moment of psychological crisis that forces the hero to come face-to-face with the denizens of his own inner underworld. In this case, Grant is on a routine excavation, digging through his own psyche, and encounters his shadow.
He slashes at you here or here.
This encounter is immediately followed by the intrusion of the Agents of Chaos. The call to adventure is short and to the point.
And if I could just persuade you to sign off on the park.
The refusal of the call is even shorter.
I'm sorry, this isn't possible. This is a...
And it doesn't take very much supernatural aid to change their mind.
Well, I could compensate you by fully funding your dig.
Where's the plane?
Here we are, crossing the first threshold just about 16 minutes into a 2-hour movie. The accelerated pacing mirrors the cautionary message about rushing into something you don't understand. Here, Grant finds himself stuck with a seatbelt that doesn't work because it has 2 female connectors. It's an amazing image that makes multiple points at once. First, the system is broken because the male half has been removed. Next, Grant ties the 2 female ends into a knot across his abdomen, introducing the movie's commentary on modern birth control. He's literally tying his own tubes, a phrase that refers to the popular sterilization procedure. But if he's tying his own tubes, then that casts him in the maternal role, which is to say, if he can't be a father, he'd rather have no kids at all. Tying a knot in the seatbelt foreshadows that, yes, this all-female system will find a way to come together and fulfill its purpose through the unplanned reintroduction of positive male chaos, which is what Grant represents, repeatedly breaking out of the confines of Hammond's artificial order. So it's basically a reverse Gordian knot. An ancient Greek legend tells the story of an impossibly complicated knot tied to an ox cart in the city of Gordium. It was said that whoever undid the knot was destined to rule all of Asia. So in 333 BC, Alexander the Great took a literal whack at it. In one version of the story, he doesn't waste much time thinking it over. He just draws his sword and cuts the knot in half. In another version, he pulls the linchpin out of the pole the yoke was attached to, allowing him to see both ends of the rope to untie the knot. More broadly, what the ancients called the Gordian knot, we might now call a Kobayashi Maru.
change the conditions of the test. Got a commendation for original thinking.
When a problem appears unsolvable according to its own internal logic, you have to step outside that logic and inject a little chaos. Having solved the impossible problem, Grant and the others complete their transition across the first threshold and enter the belly of the whale. In a movie filled with memorable moments and images, maybe the most was writing on this one. Remember, CGI was really new in 1993. Sure, it could render water and liquid metal, but could it make us believe that flesh and blood dinosaurs once again walked the earth? Turns out, yes. In that moment, we were all right there with Grant and Sadler being psychologically reoriented by this herd of massive land whales.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Seen here half submerged in water. Our heroes' reorientation continues as they learn how Hammond recreated dinosaurs using blood inside prehistoric mosquitoes that got trapped in amber. This is another key image, loaded with obvious reproductive symbolism. But notice that the process is reversed. Instead of contributing something, the needle is extracting the life essence from the egg. Thematically, it's the same dynamic we see in the modern backstory Disney made up to vilify the mythological demigod Maui in Moana. In Moana, Maui steals the heart of the goddess Te Fiti, the magic object that allows her to create life. Now, the next key similarity also happens to be a major spoiler for Moana, so skip to the time code on your screen if you don't want to know. As soon as Maui takes the heart, a powerful fire demon called Te Kā comes to take it from him. Te Kā is ultimately revealed to be Te Fiti, enraged by the theft of her heart. Te Kā, Te Fiti, her heart, and Maui's theft are all Disney inventions. But you can see the similarities to Jurassic Park. Men use cleverness and technology to usurp Mother Nature's role in creation, and the dinosaurs promptly go berserk. But the similarities end there. In fact, the movies have opposite messages. Jurassic Park is about re-establishing the natural balance between masculine and feminine, while Moana is about how great everything will be when one side finally comes out on top. Literally. What Moana posits as the solution, Jurassic Park recognizes as the problem.
All vertebrate embryos are inherently female anyway. They just require an extra hormone given at the right developmental stage to make them male. We simply deny them that.
Deny them that?
Hammond's plan to create a perfect, controllable order hinges on the total suppression of masculine energy. The dinosaurs aren't literally sterile, but they do meddle with the dinosaurs' hormones to ensure they can't reproduce, so I'm satisfied that, yes, this is a proxy for birth control. The sequence culminates with a debate around the lunch table, where everyone gets a chance to show how they've responded to the new rules of the extraordinary world. You could make a good case that the educational film marks the beginning of the road of trials. After all, our heroes are here to offer their professional opinion on the safety of the park, and we see that everything they learn, starting here, is shaping their opinions.
Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
So, if I have to pick just one stage for the Golden Path, well, it's a close call, but I'm going to stick with Belly of the Whale as the dominant note, with Road of Trials slowly fading in until it takes over right here, when they actually set out to experience the park directly. The start of the tour also introduces Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex. This kicks off Grant's B story with an on-the-nose call and refusal. The tour itself is anticlimactic, which is part of the point.
See, the Tyrannosaur doesn't obey any set patterns or park schedules. It's the essence of chaos.
But we do get to see some when Dennis Nedry tries and fails to get a canister full of stolen dino embryos off the island. And notice how Nedry's plan relies on the same logic Hammond used to create Jurassic Park.
This mother...
The movie goes out of its way to show you the genetic code that makes up a dinosaur, and how Hammond scientists inserted foreign code into the vulnerable gaps. Nedry does the same thing when he hacks the systems that run Jurassic Park. Running his malicious code allows him to penetrate the Holy of Holies and extract the proverbial heart of Te Fiti, just like Hammond's geneticist extracting the life essence from the heart of the symbolic amber egg. Who's paying Nedry to do this?
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here!
Another biotech company that wants to reproduce, pun intended, what Hammond has done. It's a degraded cycle of life, corrupted by the imposition of pathological masculine order.
I shoplifted the booty.
In a word, Frankenstein. If you think these parallels are a coincidence, consider that Nedry uses a fully functional can of shaving lotion to smuggle the embryos. It's more than a memorable James Bond gadget. It's a product for men, so it's masculine coded. And do I even need to explain what this represents? It's a phallic object repurposed to function like an egg or a womb, which also perfectly describes Hammond's cane. It's a masculine tool, pun intended again, meant to capture and then copy the feminine role in creation. It's also nice that Hammond actually needs the cane. It's a crutch that allows him to perform a physical function he'd have trouble doing otherwise. Like Hammond, Nedry recklessly overrides barriers that exist for a reason, then doesn't show respect for the forces he's unleashed.
I'm gonna run you over when I come back down.
This leads to his demise and the return of the eggs to the earth from which they were stolen, metaphorically speaking. Nedry's scheme leads directly to our hero's meeting with the goddess. Grant now knows everything he needs to know to form a conclusive opinion about the park. The A and B stories really come together here. First, the T-Rex attack serves as the climax of the supernatural aid stage for Grant's B story. This is obviously the moment that forces Grant to step into the protector role. I also strongly suspect that the major elements of the attack are symbolically related to Grant's anxieties around family and parenthood in the brave new world of reversed gender roles. First, Gennaro nopes out, failing in his paternal role of protector.
He left us. He left us.
He abandons the children to the T-Rex, who's already been established as a symbolic daughter of John Hammond.
I've been present for the birth of every little creature on this island.
Left to fend for themselves, they start groping around for a light in the darkness, which is when I think a long woman as the tempter stage takes over. Grant distracts the T-Rex, but Malcolm screws it up and the T-Rex chases him into the restroom where Gennaro is hiding. And considering how many times Hammond tells us he spared no expense, I find it really suspicious that he would cheap out with unisex toilets. No, I think this was done to reinforce the idea of the sexes being lumped together in the same box. It's also telling that this is where the failed father figure goes to escape the terrifying rage of the feminine. He's literally hiding behind flimsy cover that says, "In here it doesn't matter if you're male or female," which doesn't work because it can't work. The T-Rex injures Malcolm and devours Gennaro. This is all a symbolic dramatization of how Grant sees marriage and family working out if he tries to do things the way modern society is telling him to do them. We might even be seeing more than his fear of the future. It might be a snapshot of his own childhood, but I can only find a couple pieces of indirect evidence for that. First, Tim is very much a stand-in for Grant. Same outfit, same hair color, same obsession with dinosaurs, and they bond over a shared father wound.
It's just like coming out of a treehouse. Did your dad ever build your treehouse?
No.
Damn it.
In any case, the T-Rex knocks one of the SUVs over a retaining wall with Tim still inside it. Grant rappels down the wall, crossing the first threshold in his B story. He's gone off autopilot and left the literal beaten path laid out for him by the John Hammonds of the world. Then he literally descends into a primordial underworld. Perfect. Starting here, the B story gets a little compressed. For example, I think the tree rescue sequence is giving us a kind of 2-for-1 combo. The climb up feels like a road of trials to me, but the SUV itself is the belly of the whale. Amidst all of this danger, Tim seems most upset by the fact that he threw up.
Let's throw up.
Remember, this was part of Grant's case against having kids.
It's okay. Just give me a hand.
But here, we see him changing. This brings us back to the line about the tree houses that their fathers never built, making their escape from the tree a kind of confrontation with a father wound. The escape feels like a road of trials. And then, tag, they're swallowed up and symbolically die. We've seen this belly of the whale imagery time and time again in previous breakdowns. Meanwhile, Sadler and Muldoon go out looking for the others, but only manage to rescue Malcolm before being chased off by the T-Rex.
Must go faster.
Malcolm, by the way, is the negative aspect of male reproductive chaos.
By the way, Dr. Sadler, she's not, available, is she?
Carelessly spreading his genes, then hypocritically shaming Hammond for being reckless with the power of creation.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
I mean, not that he's wrong.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Back in the jungle, Grant and the kids hide from the dinosaurs up another tree. They get a glimpse of the grazing brachiosaurs from here, but Grant's call doesn't get more than a curious look. Now, I'll be explaining in just a moment why I think the brachiosaurs represent the good mother, which makes this moment a kind of failed meeting with the goddess. Grant needs to do one more thing to make that meeting happen. And this is where the B story does something interesting. It skips over Woman as the Temptress and Atonement with the Father and goes right into Apotheosis. When Lex asks him what he's going to do now that his old game has become obsolete, he says he'll need to learn to play a new one.
What are you and Ellie going to do now if you don't have to pick up dinosaur bones anymore?
I don't know, I guess. Guess we'll just have to evolve, too.
This kind of leap isn't unprecedented. It isn't even the biggest one I've seen. In Pulp Fiction, Jules has a near-death experience that takes him straight from his ordinary world directly to Apotheosis.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to acknowledge it.
Having faced his symbolic fear of family, Grant literally embraces fatherhood and throws away his baggage. This is the ultimate boon. Grant's transformation as a person is effectively over, and the only question now is, can he get home safely with his surrogate kids in tow? Here, the movie cuts back to Sadler, where we get something we haven't seen in any of the breakdowns so far. A stage on the golden path that doesn't involve the main character. When Hammond refuses to see that his dream was doomed from the start, Sadler tries to snap him out of it. While doing so, she admits that she failed too. This is the atonement with the Father.
When we have control again.
You've never had control. That's the illusion. I was overwhelmed by the power of this place. But I made a mistake too. I didn't have enough respect for that power, and it's out now.
And I think it's safe to say that she's also speaking for Grant. It's a nice touch that the scene takes place over a table full of melting ice cream, a treat that we can only enjoy when kept in a special place and under strict conditions. And when those conditions fail, it all goes away. The next morning, Grant's B story picks up at the Boone stage when the Brachiosaurus returns to graze, which adds meeting with the goddess as a secondary note. Here, Grant and Tim help Lex overcome her fear of dinosaurs.
Can I touch it?
Sure. Just think of it as kind of a big cow.
It's not an accident that the movie gives her the same trait that's used to separate the positive feminine from the negative feminine.
I happen to be a vegetarian.
Now, because she has Grant to guide her, she's able to push past her fear of the devouring mother and make contact with the good mother. Okay, we're going to pause here because this is the third time a female dinosaur ejects a bodily fluid onto one of our heroes. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Real Dilophosaurus could not spit venom. That was invented by Michael Crichton for the novel. You can make of that what you will, but what I see is the masculine trying to emulate the feminine, and the feminine trying to emulate the masculine. Anyway, when Grant discovers the dinosaur eggs, the A story moves into an apotheosis that's 1 part eureka and 1 part divine intervention. Eureka in that Grant figures out how the dinosaurs became capable of breeding in the wild.
The film said they used frog DNA to fill in the gene sequence gaps. Some West African frogs have been known to spontaneously change sex from male to female in a single-sex environment.
But it's also divine intervention in that they're having a direct encounter with Mother Nature, miraculously restoring balance to the world.
Life found a way.
Back in the control center, the A story's ultimate boon sequence begins when our heroes decide to try the first rule of tech support, turning it off and on again. The boon is the thing you need to have a shot at solving the problem, so getting the locks and phones working again definitely meets that criteria. In terms of the golden path, it's also another lateral pass from Grant to Sadler. Meanwhile, as Grant leads the kids back to base, they encounter a herd of herbivores. The B story boon stage continues as we see him playing dad to Tim.
Tim, can you tell me what they are?
Gallimimus.
But the B story progresses to Refusal of the Return when they're nearly trampled by the Gallimimus who are trying to avoid the T-Rex. As Grant and the kids slip away undetected, Sadler and Muldoon set off for the maintenance shed to find Arnold and reset the circuit breakers. All of this is still part of the boon sequence for the A story. And back we go to Grant and the kids as they approach a stretch of electric fence. I gave a lot of thought to which single stage best describes this sequence because it pulls elements from several. At first I thought, maybe this is a late Atonement with the Father because it's the lowest point in Grant's B story, and we didn't get one earlier. But this scene isn't about Grant being called to admit his shortcomings. It's just a terrible thing that happens, and Atonement is more than that. Then I thought it might be crossing the return threshold. After all, Grant crosses the first threshold in his B story when he goes over that retaining wall. And now, here's another wall fencing them in. This would create a nice symmetry, but I don't think they're out of the woods until he actually gets the kids safely off the island. The fence is a threshold, but it's not the return threshold. In the end, I decided to stick with Refusal of the Return as the root note and crossing the return threshold as a secondary note. With that settled, let's get back to the A story, where Sadler succeeds in restoring the power. Boon achieved. Mission accomplished. And the moment this happens, we pivot into Refusal of the Return. First, Sadler is attacked by a raptor, barely escaping with her life. Second, Tim gets zapped off the fence. Third, Muldoon dies. On that point, I think he dies, symbolically speaking, because his solution is death, not life. On that note, here's a picture of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. It's taped to Nedry's computer, next to a caption that makes a joke about the real quote-unquote baby boom being extinction by nuclear war. Grant and the kids get a short but ultimately false reprieve when they make it back to the visitor center and find a buffet full of food. Healthy food over there, junk food over here. This is another reason I'm reluctant to call the electric fence the return threshold. It's a false escape. Hansel and Gretel are still trapped in the devouring mother's house of candy. But we'll get back to Hansel and Gretel in a moment. The magic flight begins with the arrival of the velociraptors, which escaped their paddock when the power outage killed their electric fence. This, by the way, is the magic flight for the A story and the B story. It's not the magic flight just because it's their final encounter with the most dangerous dinosaurs on the island. I think the raptors represent the little monsters, pun intended, Tim and Lex would become without a healthy father figure in their life.
He loves us. He loves us.
But that's not what I'm gonna do.
They must confront their own shadow. Why do I think that? Well, if we zoom out and look at all of Jurassic Park as a metaphor for the brave new world that Grant doesn't like, then every interaction with it is a commentary on that world. First, the masculine half of the equation is removed. Then, the feminine tries to fill that void.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth.
Except that woman doesn't inherit the earth because only the return of the actual literal masculine can restore the balance. The pantomiming only turns the feminine pathological. And once the pathological feminine has taken control of the system eventually collapses entirely. This results in the next generation of little monsters being turned loose on the world.
The shutdown must have turned off all offenses.
So the final encounter with the raptors isn't just a battle for their lives, it's a battle for their souls. Which brings us to the game of cat and mouse in the kitchen.
I know my way around the kitchen.
It's mythologically correct that the kids have to do some of the work on their own. Once they reunite with Grant and Sadler, they try to reactivate the communication and security systems. It takes both mom and dad working together to keep the little monsters at bay, which is symbolically correct. But that means it's up to Lex to save the day, to push past Nedry's pantomimed image of the feminine to make the system work for them instead of against them. This isn't just a nice hero moment for a supporting character. To explain why, let's go back to Hansel and Gretel and see how the two stories overlap. First, both stories include a backstory that revolves around a rupture between parents.
He had to leave early. He wants to be with his daughter. She's getting a divorce.
Well, I understand that, but we've been advised to deal with the situation now.
In Hansel and Gretel, their mother has died and the father remarries a woman who convinces him to abandon his children in the woods. The father isn't strong enough to stand up to her. The children are then lured into a honeypot trap by a motherly figure who seems nice enough at first. Then they're locked inside and the devouring mother reveals her true plan: to devour them. She puts Hansel in a cage with the intention of fattening him up and makes Gretel her servant, which gives her a little more room to roam. When the day actually comes, the witch decides to eat them both, but Gretel uses the witch's own tools against her. She tricks the witch into showing her how the oven works, then shoves her inside. The corrupted system ends up devouring itself. The end. In that sense, Sadler plays the role of Gretel during the Boon stage, restoring the power while Hansel, represented by Grant and Tim, is still trapped in his cage.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
Then Lex takes the mantle during the magic flight, saving Hansel by making the tools of the candy house work for them. Thematically, it's for the same reason, to dramatize the healthy feminine overcoming the pathological feminine. I'm not saying any of this is intentional, and they're not all one-to-one similarities, but that makes sense. If Hansel and Gretel is the dinosaur ancestor, Jurassic Park is its bird descendant, similar but adapted to fit its new environment. In any case, the locked doors don't stop the raptors for long, and the chase reaches its climax back in the lobby. Here, our hero family leaps onto the hanging display. Like I said earlier, Grant is clinging to the bones of a world that's dead and gone, which is why, symbolically, the raptors' attack breaks them all apart and brings them all crashing down. And boom. The T-Rex appears out of nowhere to provide one of the most memorable rescues from without of all time. A story and B story. This is a variation of the witch being pushed into her own oven. In this case, the devouring mother smashes the patriarchy, then eats her own symbolic children, while Hansel and Gretel get the hell out of Dodge. Just outside, we get an early Master of the Two Worlds for the A story.
After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. So have I.
Obviously, they're still in the extraordinary world, but Grant is sharing what he's learned on his adventure with the person who asked for it back when they were in the ordinary world. Then it's on to crossing the return threshold for the A story and B story. With the island in the rearview mirror, we get a more conventional Master of the Two Worlds for the B story. Grant has returned, having learned that the real ultimate boon is the children who didn't get disemboweled along the way. The approving look from Sadler is showing the effect that the boon is having on the ordinary world. The movie wraps up with 2 symbolic doses of freedom to live. The flock of birds provides us with the more obvious symbol. Balance has been restored. What's old is new again. Life will change, but according to nature's plan, not John Hammond's. The final shot provides us with one last nod to careful balance. They're not just flying off into the sunset. They're center-framed, staying within the narrow band of light reflecting off the water, with darkness waiting on either side should they drift too far, one way or the other. So that's Jurassic Park. 33 years old, and it's more relevant than ever. What else can I say? If you got something out of this video, I hope you'll like, share, comment, and subscribe. This was the 17 stages of story in Jurassic Park. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.